welcome everyone. I am Maria Tenorio, today's event moderator. Thank you so much for joining this session from Dreams to Pixels, a journey into indie game development. I have the pleasure to introduce to you our amazing speaker, Maithili Dhule. Maithili is an engineer by profession, a writer by choice, and an aspiring game developer at heart. She is the author of Beginning Game Development with Godot and Exploring Game Mechanics. After a friend introduced her to the art of creating games, it quickly found itself on her list of passions. When she's not working at her full time job, she can be found creating pixel art, experimenting with different game engines, or being immersed in one of her favorite games. She also enjoys sketching, writing poetry, and going for runs while listening to a good music playlist. Thank you, Maidali, for being here today, and now I will pass the session over to you.
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining in the session. So I hope you're all excited to be here. We have lots of good talks today. So growing up, I always loved playing games of all sorts. I love the fact that you could be a knight or a warrior and dive into a virtual world full of endless possibilities. You could complete quests, explore unknown lands. You can create your own theme park or uh, create shops and see how it all played out. So this fascination with games is what inspired me to learn game development. And today I would like to give you a glimpse into a few tips and lessons that can help you become a better game developer. So, no matter what type of game, you always start out as a rookie, not knowing anything about the game. But then as you learn the rules and progress through the game, you get better and discover all the secret mechanics that make the games so captivating. So let's get started. So I would just want to mention really quick that these are two books I have written that you might find useful. So the first one is Beginning Game Development with Godot, which teaches you how to create your first 2D platform game from scratch. And the second one is Exploring Game Mechanics, which teaches you the principles and techniques that you can use to make your games fun and interesting to play. So we'll talk more about that later. So let's talk about the agenda for today. So first, I'll introduce a little bit about game development. Then we'll talk about the stages of game development, the elements of game design, how to get game assets, and which game engines to choose and how to choose them. Then a little bit about game jams and some tips and lessons. So, what is indie game development? Indie game development or independent game development refers to creating games on an individual scale, usually without the support of a major game studio or publisher. So the question arises, to be or not to be solo or a solo developer? There are pluses and minuses on both sides of the equation. It depends on lots of factors. For example, everyone has different work styles. Maybe you prefer to work on your own, and maybe you have another day job and you can't commit to deadlines for completing the game. So being a solo developer gives you the flexibility and freedom to work on your game however you want on your own terms. You need to think about the vision for your game as well. If you want to create a large scale AAA style game with lots of interesting quests, side quests, characters, and immersive storylines, then it might be in your best interest to work with others. In that way, you are also accountable to your team members due to the commitment to finish the game, and you can help each other out and learn from each other's skill set. So, what are the stages of game development? The first one is the planning stage, where you have to think about the genre of your game, whether it will be a 2D game, 3D game, the art style, storyline, the budget, and how much time you can actually invest in creating the game. And you also need to think about obtaining or creating game assets such as the art, the music, and the storyline. And that's what you do in the design and production stage, where you actually create the game world and you code the game mechanics and you design characters and NPCs. Then the testing stage is also very important because you will encounter bugs in your game. It will not be perfect. So you also need to focus on game balancing to make sure that the game is playable at all levels, unless of course your game is has a inherent difficulty level. And you also need to ensure that there are no unfair exploits that players can use to take advantage of your game, and players don't get stuck somewhere in your game that is not intended. Then once you iron out all the issues, especially game breaking bugs, you can think about launching your game. So you can actually release like an early access version of your game or free trials to your game to get people interested. And afterwards, after the launch, you can release patches or updates or even DLCs for your game. So, what are the key design elements? So, the first is the art, which depends on whether your game is 2D, 3D, and depends on the theme and the style of the game. And music and sound effects, of course, they will change depending on the theme and the emotions you want your players to feel. Then the game mechanics are, of course, the nuts and bolts of the game, which include the rules, then victory and defeat conditions, and game balancing. And storytelling is optional, like depending on your game. For example, if it's an RPG, then definitely storytelling plays a huge role. The game can be either linear or non-linear, uh, and then can be first person or third person point of view. So these are all the things you need to really think about during the planning stage. So, how do you get the game assets for your game? So, there are lots of great websites which offer both free as well as paid assets. For example, itch.io, kenny.nl, OpenGameArt, and Ansimus. And whenever you actually take an asset, you need to look at the license that the asset provides. Is it open source, or do you need to give attribution? Then you also need to think about the theme of the game and choose the asset accordingly. For example, you might want to create like a cute platformer game, so you would choose assets accordingly. And that would be very different than if you wanted to create like a 3D game with hyper realistic assets. Next comes the game engine. So, how do you choose one? There are so many. There's Godot, Game Maker, Unity, RPG Maker, Unreal Engine. There are mind-boggling possibilities. So, to think about this, you need to think of the game engine like an oven. So, for example, like if you are baking a cake, what do? You first gather all the ingredients, mix them up, and then put them in an oven to bake. No matter what type of oven you use, the end product is the same. It's a cake. So there are lots of different types of ovens that you can use with different types of features. But in the end, they help you achieve the same thing, which is to bake a cake. A game engine is just like that. It's just like an oven that you use to create your game. So, since the engine is like a collection of audio, video, and technical tools that give you the basic framework to create any game, you can pick and choose your engine according to your needs and the type of game that you are trying to create. So, you also need to think about the different coding languages that each game engine supports and what are the main features of each engine. So I've listed down a few examples which can help you get started. So Godot, for example, has its own Python-like script called GD script, and it also supports C Sharp, and it's open source and free to use and beginner friendly. But if you want something that's more versatile, you might go with Unity, which has the free pro and royalty versions. If you want to create something with more primarily 3D with stunning graphics, then you can choose Unreal. And if you want to create text-based games, then Twine is a good engine for that. RPG Maker is, as the name suggests, good for RPGs and has simple scripting. And Game Maker Studio has like a simple drag and drop type mechanism, so you can use that for those type of games. So after you create your game, you obviously want a place to publish it. So there are so many marketplaces where you can publish them. So I've listed down a few good ones that can help you as someone who's starting out. So itch.io, Steam, GameJolt, Google Play, or Apple Store. So you need to think about the platform on which you want to publish your game. Do you want it to be like a browser game or a Windows game that you can either play on your PC after downloading it, or an iOS game? and then you need to register on these websites, and some of them actually charge you a fee. For example, Steam definitely charges you a fee to put your game up, but itch.io is completely free. Then you also need to work on your game store page, where you need to give a description of your game. You can provide some trailers or screenshots which give you a glimpse into your game, and maybe ratings according to the different elements of your game, and whether an early access version is available. Then most of these pages also give you access to analytics, which tell you like how popular your game is, and how many people are actually interested in your game. Then you can also receive payment. You can actually sell your games. Like you can choose to keep it for free or you can sell it. That's totally up to you. And of course, you can always spread the word among your social circle, among the people in your social circle, like your friends and family members. Another thing you can think about are game jams, which are a time bound outlet for creativity. So, a game jam is like a time limited event, usually an online event, but could be in person as well, where you are given a theme that you need to follow and create a game within a certain time limit. For example, in Kenny's game jam this year, the theme was exploration, and you could only use the game assets which were designed by this Kenny studio. So, like each game jam will have its own set of constraints and theme that you need to follow. So anyone can join the game jam usually for free, and but you have to stick to the rules, such as stick to the theme, using certain game assets, and other restrictions that the game jam organizers might impose on you. And you have to submit like a playable version of the game at the end of the deadline. For this, you can actually work alone, or you can work in a small team to complete the game. And once the deadline passes, there usually is like a voting session where the voting will decide the winners. And you can also play other people's games and vote for them. You would think that the time bound nature of the game jams is restrictive, but in fact, it can make you think out of the box and let you really be creative. Now, let's take a look at a few interesting case studies from which we can learn. So, Stardew Valley by Eric Barone had over 20 million copies sold. This is like a golden example of an indie game. This is a farming simulator with tons of activities where you move to a farm and you can customize your own house, farm, grow crops, go fishing, explore caves, fight monsters, and meet tons of NPCs, each of which have different personalities and react and actually interact with you in their own unique way. It has beautiful pixelated artwork and soundtrack. All of this was designed by one person, Eric Barone. So he actually worked under the pseudonym Concerned Ape and finished this game within a period of 4.5 years. And throughout this entire time, he used to post blog posts to tell readers about the progress of the game. And this was actually inspired by Harvest Moon, an old time classic. And Eric wanted to actually give this game more purpose and more in game activities. So he improved upon Harvest Moon to make his own creation. So, some things that make this game really amazing and successful are that it has tons of activities. It was designed solely by one person, and it caters to all player types. Whether you're a casual gamer or a hardcore gamer, this you would find this game fun to play. It has a very unique environmental interaction. For example, the sound of your footsteps uh, is actually different if you're walking, say, on wood versus on grass. So, subtle things like that actually make the environment very immersive. And it also features tons of endless endgame content. So, some players have actually logged more than thousands of hours on this game. So, from that, you could actually understand how amazing this game is. So the optional complexity of this game ensures that you don't really have to make the game complex. You can actually play the game as a casual gamer as well, and has a natural progression where you start out at a lower level, but then you can actually level up. Now, let's take a look at a second game, The First Tree by David Weir. This is a $0 marketing miracle. Unlike Stardew Valley, actually David Weir actually took the assets for this game from different websites. He actually bought them, and he did not make them by himself, but he created this game within just 18 months. Uh, Now, here are some reasons, according to David, why his game was such a huge success. So, number one was it has eye catching visuals, as you can see from this GIF. And he used to post GIFs such as these on all sorts of websites to really gain the attention of the players. And number two was this was associated with things that gamers already loved. A lot of players really loved the cute little fox that was featured in this game. Then number three was that this game was story driven and featured a beautiful soundtrack. And it also catered to all types of players. Number five was what David calls call to wish list, which means that he actually encouraged players to wish list his game so that when it actually launched, a lot of people would already know about the game and would be interested in buying it and playing it. So now let's take a quick look at some tips and lessons that you could find useful on your indie game journey. So number one is post-release blues. After you release a game, you might actually feel a little sad because there will definitely be people who are not happy with your game, who might bring up bugs and stuff that is wrong with your game. But you have to remember that you cannot please everyone. When you have reviews, you have to take what suits your vision and leave the rest, because at the end of the day, the game is your own creation. So be ready for all sorts of feedback and take feedback with a grain of salt. Then strengths and weaknesses. We all have different skills and sometimes we can't do everything. So in that case, maybe you might want to work in a team instead of working by yourself. Then also focus on the motivation, on why you are actually making this game. So motivation could be money. Maybe you want to make an amazing game which you can sell for thousands of dollars, or maybe you just want to fuel your creativity. So really think about your motivation throughout your entire journey. And finally, there are three keywords which I feel can truly help you and really summarize the entire indie journey, which are ideas, achievement, and appreciation. So you start out with these amazing ideas which you have for a game, and you put them into play, and you create this amazing playable product at the end. So when you're finished with your game, you feel this nice sense of achievement, which really motivates you. And when people like your game, you feel appreciated, and that motivates you to go and go on to the next task. So, yeah, I think we have covered quite a lot today, and we can talk a lot more on this topic. So, if you have any questions, please reach out to me at the following email, and you can actually scan this QR code to find my website and get in touch with me. So let's get in touch and continue our conversation forward.
Thank you, Maithili, for presenting your journey into indie game development. I have to say that I love video games as a gamer and as an engineer, and I got a lot of inspiration for your talk. So let's see some questions from the chat. I have one for Joanne. In your experience, how much time does it take to build a game from scratch?
Thank you. Thank you for this question. Yeah, I think this is an excellent question. So actually, it's a very open-ended question, to be honest, because each every game has different size. Like you might want to produce a 100-hour game, or you might want to produce like a 1 hour game. So it quite depends on your game, but maybe you can try to take part in a game jam, to challenge yourself and to see how much time it takes you, depending on your priorities, to work on a game, and then you can take it forward from there to work on bigger projects.
Yeah, that's something really important, especially when you're starting to learn something and you're trying to gain confidence and don't know if you want to publish or release your game. I think it's really a good experience going for game jams. You mentioned. So we also have another question from Patricia. In your experience, what platform do you think has more advantage or visibility to publish your game as indie dev?
Okay. So I think advantage and visibility could be two separate things. So if you're just starting out, maybe you can use the Godot engine. It's in my experience, it's very simple to use and easy to learn. And you might want to start publishing your game on free platforms like itch.io, which I mentioned previously. um, and as you get better, and if you have like a bigger team to work with, then maybe you can think about publishing on Steam is quite good. It's quite well known actually, and if you can get your game on to Steam and get good visibility for your game, I think you can truly make your game a success. Yeah, lots of indie games that were published on Steam really sold lots of copies, because of the marketing that Steam provides.
Yeah, actually, I think Steam have a really good community. They give
Yeah,
also really good feedbacks. I see a lot of people who are working as a solo developer doing indie games. They present their ideas in Steam and also get like really good feedbacks and release their games there.
yeah.
So I really want to ask you if you have like some key challenges that indie game developer commonly have to face and which kind of recommendations you can give us to overcome them.
Okay, sure. So maybe one thing from my experience is, if you have already have a full-time day job, that can be a challenge to work on your game, because you have other priorities and you really need to balance your time. So in that case, you can actually you need to stick to a schedule. You need to think for yourself, how many hours a day can I spend every day, or every weekend on my game. So I think time management can really help you. Another thing is, there are so many resources available online, but sometimes it gets very confusing. Which programming language do I choose? Which game engine do I choose? There are so many. So maybe you just do your research a little bit and try a few of them out, see how it works for you. And since everybody is different, you might find something more easier than somebody else. So yeah, do your research and try to manage your time well, and I think that can really help you.
Thank you so much. So we have this question. Besides game jams, what other ways can be met other game devs and collaboration on building games together? This question is by Victoria.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, of course, game jams are a wonderful way to meet other people, online, especially to people who have the same interests as you. And you can also try to go to like some conferences or expos or events such as the one we have today, and really meet people who have same interests as you. For example, now in Singapore, actually, we will be holding a series of workshops on how to create your first game from scratch in the future. So try to look for events like that around you, if you have any game development events. And I'm sure you will meet people who you can work with and create something amazing with.
And as a final question, also by Patricia, what stage of game dev do you enjoy the most?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. So, for me personally, I feel the planning stage is the most important, because you're brainstorming all, and like possibilities. You're thinking about the art style, the theme, what kind of music you're going to use. So I feel that's like the most creative part of the process, and I really enjoy that stage. Yeah, because you have so many possibilities at your fingertips.
Big thanks to Maithili for being with us today and also sharing her experience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria. Yeah, yeah. Do take a moment to scan the QR code and or maybe reach out to me, and let's keep the conversation going. I think we can really talk a lot about this and hopefully collaborate in the future. Thank you, everyone.